Good evening, good night, and welcome. I am Nobody, your storyteller and number one fan. This is officially Lost Wages and Second Chances, Season 2, Episode 3, Brighter Than the Sun. And as always, we'd like to thank you for your time, your energy, and your efforts, and hopefully you will enjoy the madness that this coterie gets up to. So I'm taking it that everyone understands where we exactly will be picking up. We will be beginning in opposite anti-alphabetical order, starting with a brief introduction, the title and all that good stuff. But being as we have roughly 8 minutes to a hard start, we are all here. I'm going to give you an opportunity to mingle amongst yourselves, come up with a plan of action, whether you execute it or not, and poison myself just a little bit longer, and I'll be right back.
All right, everybody, the Nosferatu are coming. I think we need to get our charges out of here.
I mean, to be fair, the charges have already run the fuck away.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, secure our charges, you know?
That would be great. Except we have, a frenzying vampire on our hands too.
We have. I don't know what you're talking about. So,
I guess fair, because Ryan isn't here for some reason. We have Joji.
You're not supposed to notice these. All right, I'm putting the block puzzle away before I break it. Okay, I literally have this solution folded up right in front of me, and I'm not gonna look at it because that would make me a bitch. But, oh God, I think escape is the option here, rather than combating the Nosferatu, because, like, sadly, I don't necessarily think escape is an option for me. I'm hungry.
Right, so we're just gonna shove you out the door. At them. New plan.
Oh, okay, so I'm being used as a heat-seeking missile. I love that.
Distraction.
Absolutely. Send me up the river. Like, literally, I am Chunky from the Donkey Kong song. And then there's Chunky. He dead.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna go after the two portal charges. Hopefully you guys can keep up and follow, because that's kind of why we're even here in the first place.
So this is the thing. If we can catch them, good. We'll be able to figure out, have her directly escort us to whatever location. If we can't catch them, then we need to investigate into the woman and figure out what properties she's in charge of.
Yeah. I'm going to try to catch her first and go from there.
We just need to figure out how I get away from the Nosferatu.
Typically by running away.
Yeah, but that's not really a card in my book.
How about fight one and run?
Totally try and eat one. I'm just not so sure that's a...
I'm just gonna say, you can't run if you can't stand.
What I'm saying is, I don't necessarily have the intelligente to do anything right now. I'm frenzying. I'm hunger frenzying, and I'm at negative willpower, so, I'm here until that frenzy is resolved, or someone knocks me the fuck out and drags me away.
Right. And we've already seen the craziness that ensued when Morgan's like, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't let the humans we're trying to save get killed, and stepping in front of the frenzied vampire.
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying we killed him. I'm just saying you can't run if you can't stand, and Eugene has a gun.
You
don't have to kill them.
They're not actually shoot one of them in the back or the leg.
Exactly.
Oh, you know, if you shoot, that's gonna be really loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're already on bad terms with Papa, so like, if he figures out that we, rather than skedaddled, he's gonna be spicy. Although, to be fair, I don't think there's really an option for us to not declare vocally that we have skedaddled. Sorry, Fancy, but we're gonna have to be enemies with your sire.
Fancy can fix it.
It's fine. I realize we should have lied to him at some point
Alright, so...
and not given him what he wanted.
So Eugene is going to be trying to run down our victims, our hostages, the people we're trying to save. There we go. What are you going to be up to, Morgan?
Mostly just trying to keep the frenzying Ryan at, arm's length and not attacking humans.
I'm going to be trying to eat your boyfriend. Fancy, what are you up to? I see. That's an interesting plan.
Testing y'all out for stupidity.
Alright. Absolutely, that's productive. Neon, what are you up to?
Am I there?
I believe, yeah, we're all there.
Okay.
Do you know the situation at hand?
You're frenzying Nosferatu. We're closing in. Got it.
Yep, and the two mortals that we are attempting to secure for information are running like their lives depend on it, which is accurate. Alright, so, what are your plans?
Good question. Probably get out of there.
Okay. Are you fully just attempting to flee, or are you trying to help Eugene run down our quarry before you get out of there?
I don't know. I can probably try to capture somebody before I go.
Bueno. So we've got Morgan and Ryan in the Nosferatu situation with Fancy spectating. Then Neon and Eugene going after the mortals, right?
Well, Eugene is going to shoot one of the mortals. He's going to try to shoot both of them.
Oh.
And then we can go pick them up and then leave.
Yeah, that works. Plans are certainly plans.
We love a good ass shot.
We love a good shooting here, everybody. This is America, after all.
With a
I
nice
think
shot.
Fancy would go try to get the car,
All right,
basically,
Fancy.
and cut them off.
Car. Eugene's going for the cargo. See what I did there? And I'm going to try my best not to fucking die. I realized that Ryan has more red lines coming off of him than he does any other kind of line.
Well, that's not good.
Well, you did it to yourself.
I did. All right. I'm glad that we have a somewhat functional plan.
That will go to shit in 0.38 seconds.
I'm glad that you're giving us the .08.
I'll be back in just a moment.
Use a little fuel myself. Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. And for those in the back, this is officially, without a shadow of a doubt, Lost Wages and Second Chances. Season 2, Episode 3, Brighter Than the Sun. When we last left the Lost, as I refer to the coterie, they were in a bit of a pickle. There are several fundamental understandings that each kindred is gifted with. Don't fuck with the police. Don't get caught. And lesser known, though still very much part of the social zeitgeist and paradigm in which each kindred exists. Never stand between a predator and their prey. And several of those in various states have been transgressed by the Lost. The police being an arm of the state to enforce their will on the governed is very much what they are in the midst of doing. Standing between a prey and its predator, also very much what they are doing. And as if those two glaring white hot neon demarcations of attention are not enough, they are in fact potentially in violation of the third don't get caught, as Ryan wrestles with powers infernal in the form of Morgan and her Ryan, as Eugene takes off after their quarry and Fancy proceeds to follow. The question, if there is anyone that we can simplify things down to, is Martha, what do?
That's a good question. I chase after the people we're supposed to be interrogating.
Okay, so a little bit of clarification in regards to that. What does that in fact mean? Are you going after Eugene and Fancy as they go barreling out of the window, out of the back door, in pursuit
Yes.
of the immortal?
Yes.
Okay. That being the case, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity and athletics? Let's set the pace, as it were.
Okay.
Nia? Uh-oh.
All right.
That's fairly unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay. Indeedy do. That is a good sign that we have the full, unfettered attention of fate herself. And before we examine what that actually amounts to, Morgan, the act of feeding, the act of consuming blood, vitae, the life force of a victim, both in the consumption and the sometimes voluntary supplying of that go juice, is indescribably pleasurable. It is one of the most conflicted feelings for a kindred, because you know that at the end of the day, it is not a matter of if, but when you drink too much and all of those feelings come to an end, all of that pleasure ceases to be. It is not a matter of if, but when in the giving that it will be the end of you. Yet there is an indescribably all-consuming pleasure involved in the act itself. All of those long dead and dormant endorphins from your living come blurring up out of the dark recesses of your existence. Every single solitary pleasurable thought and chemical release happening at once. If not for your, in fact, very dead state, it would be just as fugue inspiring as it is in mortals. Luckily, you don't have all of the full flow of chemicals bombarding every facet of your senses. You do, however, have the pleasure of it. Would you be so kind, if you are attempting to resist that very real pull of the kiss, begin by rolling your composure plus stamina versus your bane plus 1.
I mean, miracles can happen, right?
Not for us. Not for us. Oh fuck.
So Morgan, being a child of fury, unbridled passion, and the willingness to stand in the way of every believed and perceived injustice, being a child of your clan, and with her strangely variable living days that led to her death and her present state, would you be so kind as to define what all-consuming pleasure feels like to Morgan? As the world spins past her, the moment blurs into a distilled essence of that. What does that mean for Morgan?
Well, let's see. So, be a whole lot of mind-altering substances, and vaguely reminiscent of the energy that you find at the rave scene of the Blade movie. Just basically that, with drugs.
So not only does the world blur past, but it has a driving, almost techno house bass beat. There is the full explosion of sensory overload. The lights, the people, the press of flesh, the warmth and the vitality of it is what she experiences as, well, the kiss has its way with her. Speaking of having its way with you, and fate doing what fate does, Fancy, having watched Eugene go out of the window after the immortal and his sister Anastasia, and realizing that the Nosferatu are in fact very much across the street, which in a trailer park such as this doesn't mean what most people assume it means. The streets are in fact just hard-packed desert sand. The streets are not paved in any semblance of anything substantial. It is the lack of rain, the constant traffic, and it is far smaller of an egress than one would normally expect in an urban area. In a city such as this, even, instead of the expected 40 plus sidewalk plus lawn plus home, it is considerably closer. So taking off after their quarry, watching Eugene go, and then as you are exiting the back door and rushing around to try to help catch them off and seal off their escape, the explosion of the back door flying off its hinges as Martyr comes tumbling out and down the few steps from the trailer, in essence alerting anyone and everyone who is not busy with their own business, they would rather others not find, that something is in fact amiss. With all of that happening, where and what does that leave Fancy with? As Eugene's back is a clear sight, as the Immortal and Anastasia are further on, what is it that you do?
Fancy would try to go for the car because then that's easier to cut everybody off with the vehicle.
Okay, so breaking around the side of the trailer to get back to the main street where you all left a vehicle, or just take their vehicle? Because you didn't have your vehicle.
Where is their vehicle parked?
Excellent. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your Wits Plus drive and see if you can discern their vehicle and get it moving quickly enough.
Fucking block puzzles.
There is a rating on cars every year, year after year, that compares them with other models of a similar make. It also compares them with previous models of their own make, as well as similar vehicles that have aged as well. The 1990 Tacoma never rated very high because most of the places that people attempted to use such a vehicle was ill-suited to its strengths. It was one of the first that had a decent mileage. It was also surprisingly sturdy in drier, less humid environs such as this. So as you make it to the vehicle and see that it is in fact a very last century vehicle, there is a certain deflation of expectations. There is a certain fucking hell as you approach their vehicle, the window down, the car allowed to remain as cool as possible. There's nothing like stepping into the 10th level of hell that is a sealed, closed-off vehicle in a desert environment. Looking at the mess of what it might be and attempting to figure out, were they smart enough to leave their keys in the visor? All of those thoughts bombarding you as you look at what has to be her vehicle. There's buckets of drywall mud and paint in the back, a tool case, various ropes, pulleys, and the like. There's a rack that is completely and totally not only aftermarket but DIY. You know for a fact that's got to be one of those rolling standing closets that they sell at Lowe's or Home Depot that has been welded to the frame of this vehicle to act. And the fumbling and falling of Marta as she tore through the back door is not the only sign that things have slid considerably. The other being the blinkering and shutting off of the lights of the home directly across the street. The sudden ending of the yelping and growling of the animals with the uproar of the broken door, the barking, the yapping, the cacophonous sound of animals kept as pets, believing that they are in fact guards, ending. 1 second as you were closing on the vehicle, it was a veritable zoo of noises, growls and barks and answering barks and yips and yowls from even the coyote somewhere out there in the dark to the quiet of the grave. And speaking of quiet of the grave, you've never seen people of such voluptuous, statuesque softness, hauling ass as determined as they are, Eugene. You've chased down many deadbeats and debtors and the like, but two soft-looking desert dwellers who don't even have the wherewithal to have sweated away all of their water weight to not be as warm and affectionate as they seem to be, running headlong into the night. He has a gun. She isn't completely dressed in what fancy picked, but there's no way that they should be able to move at the speed that they are. Yet they are literally hauling ass. What is on your mind? What is it that you are attempting to do?
I draw my pistol and shoot them both in the ass.
That is one way.
Just running shit. It's too hot.
Literally, so like they're so soft and unprepared for this. Well, they'll make good targets.
All right. That being the case, a moving target. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your? Are you taking the time to do your Danny Glover slow, careful, revolver-styled aim, or are you just shooting from the hip?
I'm gonna use my quick draw skill.
Cowboy spittoon these people.
All right. Sounds like a plan. You are aiming at two targets, so go ahead and roll your dexterity plus firearms plus specialty -1.
Alright. Now, the specialty, does it give me a die, or does it just give me an ease with the rolling?
It gives you a +1 to literally do that. Draw it from its holster, fire, and slip it back in. Well, them receiving a -2 to attempt to zigzag and otherwise be somewhere besides in front of the flying projectile makes that an impossibility that they could even so much as tie with that. Your firearm, it's a standard 9 or is it something considerably larger?
Oh my god, did you kill the fucking captives?
It is a. Let's see. It's a Smith and Wesson
3 and 7 is
Model 29.
3 and 7, my dear boy, is 10. Unfortunately, mortals don't get to have that damage, and it is not, in fact, in their abilities. As the sounds of animals baying and answering and calling various growls and barks and otherwise the cacophonous nature of animals caught by surprise, the sound of something breaking, falling outward into the night, they're quiet with the report of the firearm. Feels like judgment. In most person's mind is the image of Bonnie and Clyde from that old 1970s movie being riddled with bullets. That's what most people think of, or they see, or in their minds they see squibs going off in some action movement or another. And in most later generations, there's the CGI'd idea of spurts and gouts of blood happening. That's not exactly what happens when something is hit with a projectile from a firearm. There are gouts of blood, there are shrapnel, but the shrapnel is unfortunately usually bone and muscle being torn free from its moorings. The gouts of blood happen if you hit an artery or some other such. But even when those fountains of blood don't erupt from the point of contact, shrapnel and debris from the victim can fly as far as 15 to 25 feet. Eugene just at the edge of that, and as the passing bits of detritus nearly stain his clothing or nearly come close, he watches as both figures hit and land. The only question: whom did you shoot first?
The immortal.
There's a before and an after to such things as this. Before them hitting the ground, before them unmoving, they had the opportunity and options of seeing tomorrow. After your bullet tore through them, that is no longer an option. And the night is suddenly quieter. There is a feeling that death has. It fills the space. It leaves a slick sheen to those who witness it. The brain gets a little smoother in an attempt to hide itself from the very real spiritual ramifications of death, that changing of energy, the soul that was no longer existing in this plane of understanding.
Nobody just called you a smooth brain.
And speaking of no longer in this existence, no longer really registering as of note, Ryan, you know, you've sampled various vintages, various persons, each with their own particular aroma, all with their particular humor. You know that such things don't really exist when imbibing other kindred, lest they had that aroma and vintage in them. You are, by dint of connection to them through the vitae, able to taste their previous meal, their previous humors sampled. All of that to say, with Morgan most recently having fed in and around Ryan, there's a sweet, sugary undertone to her vitae. It's not the metallic, minty, almost licorice melon sweet of average, normal kindred vitae. There's a mildly enthusiastic aspect to it, almost as if you could taste the party happening wherever she actually might be. There's a immediate closeness you have to Morgan as Ryan again attempts to kick you in the face and again attempts to forcefully and directly pry Morgan from your ravenous touch. He is ardently putting his whole back into it. He is doing his best to stand on the business that pays him. He is doing his best to, well, save Morgan. Having consumed at least one draught of her vitae, you could, if you choose, attempt to either defend yourself from the human Ryan or free yourself from Morgan by restraining that monster in your chest.
As unlikely as it is, I feel like I feel like his, as that sliver of sanity comes in, I feel like his first priority would be to get himself off of his friend, who he is eating right now.
All right. That being the case, your target number is your Bane +1. Do roll your Resolve plus Composure when you have the opportunity.
Okay. My Bane +1, you said?
Yes, sir.
Alright. Boop. Hey! So with a pool of 5 and a DC of 3, I've managed to succeed. 3 successes.
You have managed to put the beast back. You've managed to leash it. You've managed to put the genie somewhat back in the bottle. Unfortunately for you, Ryan does not know that. And that makes your DC effectively 1 as you are wrestling with powers infernal as he is physically attempting to pry and beat you free of his most beloved employee.
I'm so glad that Ryan is attempting to beat off Ryan.
Phrasing.
I say that, but we know that was absolutely purposeful. So we will...
You asshole! I saw what you did there.
There was a song that was in Shrek that is an old 80s pop song, Holding Out for a Hero. That very much is playing as Ryan does everything he can to save Morgan from the monstrosity that is you. The blows about the head and shoulder and the kick to the chest as he wrenches Morgan free of your grasp makes him feel as if that the crescendo of the chorus of that song is all about him. to be so kind as to take that total 4 superficial and apply it to your health tracker, as you are light as a feather, heavy as a board, sent staggering back from the victim of your choice.
Okay, you said take the total?
Yeah, it's the 3 plus the 1 from the punch and grabs, be bringing it to a 4. So of course you'd half it before applying it to your health tracker.
That's what I was trying to figure out, whether or not you said total, so I was like,
Yes, the power of Odin courses through him, and he frees his most. No, he's not a supernatural creature, and he's not teeth or fangs, and he's not blessed with Mjolnir, so.
Yes, as he fucking straight up, this is Sparta, kicks me out the window.
Not quite, just to the door, staggering a few paces closer to the door, which is not necessarily the wrong place to be, but it is most assuredly the opposite of the right place to be.
As Ryan just kind of slowly, just ever so slightly slips back into his senses, just, oh God, what? As he's holding his side and his ribs, having been cracked from the absolute would have gone across the field football kick into his side. Just, Sonny, I'm off. I healed.
Who's the puppy now, bitch?
And then he just kind of like furrows his brows as he's like, wait a second, is this guy actually trying to go? And then he figure out where the fuck he is again. Realizes where the fuck he is. Realizes who's not there. As he's looking about, he's like, where did everybody else go?
I don't fucking know. You tried to eat Morgan. Morgan, are you alright? Morgan.
She'll blink at him a couple of times. I'm here.
You fuckers are cannibals too? That's just... And as he says, that's just... Neon, there are certain things that are unacceptable. Sand under the eyelid being foremost one of them.
Oh.
As you land nearly face down, barely keeping yourself from landing in all of that hot, packed sand, you hear the report twice of a gun somewhere off in the distance. You were nearly trampled as Fancy went rushing past you toward the front of the cabin. With the report out there, roughly 30 or so yards further out there into the darkness, with Fancy having run past you the other way, with the sounds of scuffling and fighting still happening inside, what is it that you do?
I think I would actually run towards the gunshots.
Oh. You rush forward into the dark, near where those bright flashes of light were. There are some things that only are recognized in hindsight out of the corner of your eye. Something that's generally looked past or skipped over, but in hindsight you realize that it was there the entire time. The dogs around you, the cats yowling, all of those sounds have come to an absolute dead full stop as you catch up to Eugene, standing, his gun holstered, there's nothing in his hand, like a magic trick, and roughly 20 or so, 15 or so yards further on, 2 shadowed, crumpled pieces of former living things exist.
Well, I'll go check them and see how thoroughly dead they are.
Thanks.
Kind of things a doctor.
an instinctual thing, a absent muscle memory thing is what you seek to do. Triage, the saving of lives, the keeping the cattle and lesser life forms around long enough so that you can satiate those who need it. Would you be so kind as go ahead and roll your, for triage, wits plus medicine.
Okay.
And while that is happening, Fancy, the night is quiet. You know that old, often trotted out chestnut of quiet, too quiet? That's exactly what you experience as you get the door open and begin looking through the visor and realize, no, she's smart. She's a property manager, and find the keys under the floorboard, under the gas. Jangling the keys in the quietude of the evening. The gunshots you heard mere seconds ago, sounding far louder than they should in the quiet of the evening.
And she gets in the car and starts it up. In for a penny, in for a pound. If she can at least get further away from the trailer, get the bodies or get them if they're still alive. She doesn't know that they're dead, so she still has hope that they can get them away from this space and out too far for the Nosferatu to come chasing.
Okay. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your resolve plus drive? Because there is a considerable amount of off-roading that you would need to do to head them off at the pass before they make it to the next street. Now here's a question for you, Eugene, as Fancy makes her way on her way, as Marta comes rushing up out of the dark behind you. How itchy is your trigger finger, considering that you're alone in the dark with two dead mortals and something's rushing out of the dark towards you?
I'm pretty sure Eugene also knew that the Nosferatu were coming as well.
Way to dig that hole, bud.
He would be rather itchy, but he'd be cautious, not flinchy though. He'd be cautious. The sound that it's coming from, is it like close behind me or?
Oh yeah, closer than it should have been. There was an explosion of wood, and then you hear a car starting, and the entirety of the rest of the night goes quiet. Immediately behind the report of your firearm, immediately after pulling that trigger faster than most people would have been able to think, holstering the gun still warm, there's the sound of footfall on hard-packed sand.
Yeah, he'd be really itchy, but not ready to blast anything moving. He's not quite there yet. But he would be very, very cautious. Whirling around, he's going to draw the gun, but not fire.
Like a magic trick, it's back in his hand. The trigger nearly going off as Martha, blonde, vivacious head comes rushing past him, moving directly towards which of the fallen, Martha, are you attempting to triage? Or are you enlightening them both?
Probably both.
Okay. Which one first? The male immortal that you were after, or Anastasia?
Probably the immortal.
There is a very real dirty aspect to being kindred. There is a life given to your intrusive thoughts. There is a presence given to all of that negative self-talk that you do in the mirror during your living days. All of those things that we have to squelch or push down has the full strength of the entirety of our personality, free of our own logic. So as you close on the bodies, which are a mess, the solid slug revolver shell that was sent through them was enough to shatter bone, rip through the entirety of their gluteus muscles, leave a mess of exposed flesh, and all of that hot blood, still kept warm in this lovely desert night air, is welling up. Your mind going through what needs to be done, what veins are near, what arteries are near, the breath, and all of that. And you're working on trying to triage them as a matter of muscle memory when the opposite begins presenting itself. There's no sense in wasting all of that warm blood sitting right there. So very, very close. It is all that Martha can do to not sink. Would you be so kind as to roll 1/3 your resolve plus composure to pull yourself free of where she buries her fangs, where she begins lapping and slurping and enjoying the last gasp of the throw. Yeah, 1/3. It's 1/3 of your humanity plus your unspent willpower to pull yourself free. The DC, of course, unfortunately, is 3. So have at it. Do your best. Our fingers are crossed that you do not, in fact, follow the immortal down into the realm of the dead, where his soul actually is. At the exact same time as that battle for remaining here is happening, you all hear the starting of that Tacoma. It sounds like an old man, well past work age, who refuses to stay in bed a moment longer, sometime just before sunrise. The hacking, the coughing, the clearing of the lungs, the sinuses, and the nasal cavities, along with making sure that he has not in fact emptied his bladder before he wanted to, before making it into the restroom. His coughing and sputtering and refusing to lay prone and still is what you all hear from that Tacoma outside that barred and blockaded front portion, that front door behind you, Ryan, Morgan, and human Ryan. The back window is broken open as the immortal and Anastasia took off in the night. The 2 gunshots you just heard. What is it, as you all are discussing Ryan getting his pithy retort towards Ryan, having beat off Ryan from drinking Morgan down into, well, potentially oblivion?
It's just hearing this horrid fucking noise coming from the main entrance and seeing the window just fucking gone. The gunshots just absolutely snag his attention. He's still remembering that there is a horribly sickly looking pack of things. That is where his mind goes to when he hears the 70-year smoker sound. He's just gonna very, very, without making a noise, just point to the window, try and gesture everybody out the fucking window, and just with his finger, the bang bang thing, the finger guns. There we go. Finger guns, point to the window, and then he's gonna try and get out the fucking window before old coffee ruins his day. Any of that made any sense?
It did. He's still a little high from Morgan's party.
Oh yeah.
Right. Morgan is still a little high from her own party too. So I mean,
as everybody in here is slightly tripping balls.
Oh
just
yeah.
slightly.
Oh yeah. So as Ryan's confused because he literally fired a shot across the bow that demanded a retort or at least an admission that he really is the man, and Morgan is stuck between a moment of, well, back before Burning Man became so corporatized, back during the spirit of it just getting away, she was one of the few early adopters to what that actually was and what that actually meant. Getting off the grid, getting back to community, and tripping balls literally nonstop from those who were involved in such things. The parties and the exchanges of gifts for survivability, as well as just getting high and experiencing life from a different vantage. And Ryan, non-living Ryan, is aware that you all are not the worst place to be in the world, just simply at a competitor for that title.
There's a tournament going on. This one's in the semifinals.
Oh yeah.
Got a sponsorship from Mountain Dew. Oh, yeah, no. Ryan's very much of the mind that I don't need to be here right now. None of us need to be here right now. And is in the process of trying to zippity-doo-dah his way right the fuck out that window.
Ryan, Morgan, are you following Ryan out of the window or just standing?
Morgan is going to need probably a couple more moments to gather her senses.
Exulting in the afterglow. I do that to people.
Okay. So, several things happen at once, as is always the case. Fancy, I need you, as you're getting the car in gear and driving away from this particular situation, I need you to roll a minimum of DC3 with your resolve plus drive. Ryan, I need you to roll your dexterity plus celerity plus athletics if you are using your celerity to escape the present situation. The encroaching mass of enforcers are well on their way. The animals around you, having picked up on the mass casualties of explosive firearms and ferociously inebriated Nosferatu, on their way to reclaim Anastasia at every means of their discretion. And for the record, so that you are all aware, they don't have that. They have been living and riding roughshod over the population for years. They are enmeshed and embedded into the police, the local government, the horizontal and vertical. Hence the reason why they are able to party by divesting another living being of their very existence.
Okay, yeah, well, that sucks. And this is gonna suck more.
And while those roles are happening, Eugene, you thank yourself and you think to yourself, it's very good being cool, calm, and composed and not blowing Martha away as she runs past you, burying herself face first into the gunshot wound you made into the immortal. good thing I didn't fucking kill him. You think to yourself as she, instead of pulling herself free, rides that glorious silver bullet into the other side. She's briefly able to see all of the loving moments to which the immortal wanted to build his empire, wanted to build his fame, and make sure that he was one of the great ones. Go out like John Gotti, the head of an organization where he was known as the Teflon, whatever. He wasn't Italian enough to be part of the mafia, but he could make his own thing. All of the efforts spent by those around him to save him, to keep him safe and whole. All of those loving moments of people he would repay for their kindness, their effort, and their energies is what Martha is in the midst of experiencing. Everyone knows that upon death, you see all of the moments of your life. The immortal was wily enough and lucky enough and protected enough that the measure of his life up until this moment was getting away with murder, living out right out there on the hoary edge of adrenaline soaked fortuitousness. And you get a chance to experience all of that, Martha. And Eugene watching her drink down the last remnants of the immortal.
Question, storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
What is Anastasia doing? Is she currently laying down as well?
Oh, you blew her hip out. And if we wanted to, play with a double entendre, you blew her back out to her front.
Well, I do that. I gently stop her from feeding on him. With a hand on her shoulder. Don't you think he had enough? We gotta go. We don't have time for this.
Sounds good. You just looked too tempting.
You've seen, upon dying, Gene, you've seen your life flash before your eyes. You've seen what it looks like when the kindred feeds. This is very much the antithesis of that. You've never seen someone feed so ravenously and without regard for the damage done to the victim before. This is as close to, well, madness as you've seen. The entire bottom third of Martha's face is covered in the last few dregs of the immortal's existence. All of that thick, heavy, cooling blood is covering her chin, dripping with very noisy, hard plops. As what sounds like your grandpa's Ford comes barreling around the building, a Nosferatu hanging from the hood of the car, breaking its way into the driver's cab. The driver, Fancy, attempting to look past him and get through him, or at least make sure that he can't get to her, is a sight to behold. It's almost as bothersome to the soul and to the idea of peace as Martha, covered in everything that was at once the immortal. While behind you, just at the edge of about 25-30 yards, Ryan comes barreling out of the cabin. A unexpected visitor leaping from the roof down upon him. Inside, you can hear the living Ryan attempt or begin defending Morgan as the shattering of wood and doors, and it sounds like they've come through the wall, is beginning to take place. There is an understanding of what happens when there is no check on power, It is a known chestnut, an aphorism of, if you want to find the mettle of a man, don't give him adversity, give him power. And this last few moments has been an exercise in that being applied on a nightly basis. These Nosferatu, these enforcers of the prince's will, have had power unchecked by anyone and anything save him for years. They can do the most ridiculously violent, over-the-top things and get away with it. They are not breaking the masquerade because they have their fingers in just enough of everyone to make this disappear. If they get their hands on you all, they get their hands on the corpses of the immortal and soon to be Anastasia. It will be as if this moment never existed. If they complete their task of bringing Anastasia to the prince, none of this will ever reach his ear because they will obliterate this moment as if they dropped a nuclear bomb. And as we prepare for whatever the next stage of this evening is for this gathered group of the lost, it is 28 after the hour. Let's come back at 38 after. Welcome back. Those of you who left and enjoyed a small respite from the chaos that is the Lost, and is everyone in fact back and present?
I am.
I think so.
UG? Fancy? UGO.
I'm here.
Welcome. We're just waiting on Fancy. We need several decisions as to what is actually being done. Because
I love... Continue. No, please continue. I'll say my thing afterwards.
No, we just need several decisions as to what's actually being done. The door is being broken through. The roof is being clambered over. The truck is being besieged. Eugene and Martha are able to see the violence and vehemence that these things bring to bear, because at this point it is clear that as blood-soaked as they are considerably less kindred and more beast.
Damn right. Well, I was going to say, I love how you say that we get a respite from the chaos that is the Lost, but the problem is, I think it's just the chaos that is this group. We cannot say that Bethany has been calmer.
But can't we, though? There's a difference between those damn kids and these damn Nosferatu, isn't there?
Both of them will 100% taste my fury, even if my fury is running away.
It sounds like an amazing idea.
It is a wrathful retreat. A holy crusade.
Advancing in reverse.
Direction. Speaking of fancy, are you back? Oh no. The Nosferatu broke into the windshield finally. It's unfortunate. We'll give you the 21 gun salute. So Nobu, how was work today? Oh, was that a fancy?
I have a question for you, storyteller. Now, the Nosferatu, are they trying to break into the car where Fancy is, or is there one driving?
They are
both.
They are on the hood and attempting to break into the cab where Fancy is driving.
Okay, so there's none that's in a car that's visible to me from Eugene's vantage point.
Correct.
Okay, because I had a whole different thought process in my head. So that's why I was just double checking my facts before I said something.
Checking is good.
Indeed. That's how one avoids landmines. Hopefully, we don't
From my
deal with
perspective
landmines.
at the time, I was thinking that there was a car driving at us that wasn't Fancy, and there was a Nosferatu driving behind it, and I was thinking I should probably shoot through that person's face.
Oh,
However, since that car didn't exist, that would be Fancy, and I'd be shooting through her face, and I don't want to do that.
Well, if you shot through Fancy's face and caused her to crash, you could take out the Nosferatu.
that is true. An abrupt stop would fling him.
As
Yeah,
long
but
as
it
he's
would
not
also...
holding on tight.
That's true.
So, from what I gather, Martha tried to save them and then realized the trials and tribulations of being a vampiric doctor and ended up eating them.
Well, she's
Only one.
only working on the immortal presently, and Eugene, like the very non-judgmental older sibling, is. Don't worry, we'll hide the pieces. They'll never realize that lamp was broken. Come on, it's
It happens to
okay.
everybody. Don't worry. It's a really common thing. You know what they say? Second one's the charm.
Yes.
Speaking of my little snack, what is my hunger at?
Unfortunately, because you were not the thing that killed the immortal, and while you are drinking on the last vestiges of their existence, you do not get to remove your hunger to 0. You do get to remove your hunger to 1.
Ooh.
Man, I feel like I should have picked up some medical skills. I feel like attempting to save lives is the best way to maintain low hunger.
So, is the immortal proven false and currently dead?
The immortal is no longer in existence.
Temporarily.
Okay, so he was proven false.
Temporarily.
No, I have this whole thought process playing in my head that we leave him because we assume he's dead, but he's not. They turn him into a ghoul and he comes back later. I was trying to negate that.
Well, you know, it may never be too late to, you know, administer a little kindred vitae and see if there's an opportunity there.
I mean, think about it like this. Okay, the problem with unregistered childer is that, you know, it violates the sovereignty of the prince whose domain you do it in. But this prince is already trying to kill us.
That is not untrue.
Well, I don't want him alive. That's kind of the point. Her, on the other hand, is different. Him, I could care less about.
Nah, he's mine now. I'm
Mainly because,
adopting him.
let's be honest, he kind of got us into this whole fuck shit.
Oh no, I feel like you got us into this by going to my fucking mother's house, you piece of shit.
Hey, actually, it's your fault by giving me the wrong book.
All I was doing was try to buy some cards, man.
Fancy, are you back?
Yeah, I've been back for a little.
There we go.
So, as we started this particular portion of our evening, anti-alphabetical, we will reverse that trend. We will move from Eugene to Fancy to Morgan, well, to Martha, to Morgan, to Ryan. So, with the wicked tableau that is this portion of the night in Prim, with a Nosferatu literally pulling a WWE maneuver off the top of the roof of Anastasia's former abode, with a Nosferatu hanging from the front grille and climbing up over the hood of the truck in which Fancy is driving, like she stole it, because, well, she did, with two Nosferatu breaking through the door that had been barricaded as quickly and hastily as Fancy and the coterie were able to get inside and tear through the home to get to Anastasia, with Martha covered in the blood of the immortal, and the entirety of the immediate area holding their breath, hoping that they get the opportunity of seeing tomorrow. What is it that everyone is in fact doing?
Okay, Eugene is going to make a call shot. God, I hope this works.
God, I hope.
He is going to try to shoot the Nosferatu. Since he's laying on the hood prone, he's going to try to shoot him in this. Shoot the guy in. If I shoot him in the head, that might dislodge it. If I shoot him in the spine, would he temporarily spaz out, giving Fancy the chance to throw him off the car? I mean, because they got, because they have, they're pretty tough. I'm sure it won't kill him, but would it potentially cause him to, with fortitude, because Nosferatus have fortitude, if he shot him in the spine, would they temporarily flinch, giving her the chance to throw him off the car?
That's a lot of math. That's a lot of doing. So Eugene's initial response is to not quick draw, but to draw, aim, and attempt to dislodge the Nosferatu by either blowing away their bottom half or paralyzing them with a shot to the spine.
Nah, he's just gonna quick draw and shoot him in the back since it's not a definitive thing. But I will have to kidnap a Nosferatu later and see if I can get that to happen, just so I know for future reference.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So as you're, again, very much the modern Chris Angel, David Copperfield with a sidearm, holster and draw, making it appear out of nowhere to place a shell into and hopefully through the Nosferatu on Fancy's roof. While that is in operation, would you go ahead and roll your dexterity, firearm plus quick draw? Of course, it's contested, but we'll get to that in a second. While that is happening, Fancy, hauling ass like you stole this vehicle, this Tacoma, as you barrel around off-road around the side of the building and are beset because you ran through a Nosferatu you didn't see coming until it was already crashing into and crawling over the hood of the truck. What is it that you are attempting to do?
I think instinct would make her step on the brake as hard as she could, because even if she knows it's an Nosferatu, it's still a person-shaped thing hitting the car, and you tend to step on the brake.
Excellent. Would you be so kind as to roll your composure plus drive? And while that's happening, Morgan is old enough to have seen and watched and experienced Night of the Living Dead in all of its glory, big and tall and bright as all of life could be. It was only later that she learned that it was a remake of the original. It was only later that she came to understand that Cesar Romero was not only, retreading ground he had created, but was revitalizing the horror industry as a whole. It was very hard as a child to not see that as the reality of what could happen. All of those many, many years before the drugs and the free love and paid for love and all manners of love being used as a catalyst for various other things. That memory, those memories are still there underneath it all. So as the door is being battered and bludgeoned, and Ryan, who just had his hero moment, prepares to do the unthinkable, because at the end of the day, every similarly minded individual has this idea of having that last stand moment, and that is what she sees settling across him, that knowledging and understanding as he reloads his biceps, as he eases 1 foot forward and takes his stance in preparation of what is about to happen. He's already seen you all cannibalize each other. He's already aware of what you all are. Which means if you exist, aliens exist, zombies exist, worse things exist, and you have to survive this. What is it that Morgan, in full understanding as to what Ryan is preparing to do, in fact doing?
She will, basically be at full attention now. Snap up. No, babe, we gotta run.
I'm not getting hunted like a dog. If we leave them here without, how are we going to out? They're like you, right? So like him, and he points over, thumbs over his shoulder back toward where unliving Ryan literally looked as if he disappeared. How fast he was moving.
Yeah, that's why we're going. Come on.
Oh.
You have a +1. Would you be so kind as go ahead and roll your charisma and persuasion? Contest it. Because it is a lot that he's been dealing with these last few days. It's a lot of there's no chance, there's no way, this is beyond him. And in the last few moments, he was able to outfight one of you. He believes that standing his ground and being able to secure the victory through the strength of his arms, there is a chance. Because he has the proof of it. He literally stopped one of you all from feeding on you. He literally kicked the shit out of that other guy.
Fake news.
As far as he is aware, because he was not privy to the internal battle that was being waged with unliving Ryan. He was not privy to the strength of will that required of unliving Ryan. He knows that he beat, battered, and finally Sparta kicked that fucker hard enough to stop him in his tracks.
There may be a bit of a time gap, but technically he did kick me and then I went out the window.
And in a similar situation, gunshots battering at the door. Being here is a very poor idea of continued existence. Out into the night you go, only to have your, not coattails pulled, but the very real attempt of some other horrid member of your community attempt to divest you of all of your lovely, freshly stolen vitae. Leaping out of the window and covering what should be impossible by others makes his there glomming onto you like ugly on an ape, white on a rice, even more incredulously impossible. With them attempting to, from the top rope, from the top of the cage, take you to the ground and divest you of your existence, what is it that you are doing, Ryan?
So Ryan, just kind of seeing this thing coming through the air and trying to latch onto him. Numero uno idea here is don't let that happen. So he's just gonna try and do the good old redirect their momentum and sidestep it.
Excellent.
Let them just spear into the ground.
Excellent. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your strength plus athletics?
Strength?
Contested, of course.
Contested? Oh man, that's an idea.
That's unfortunate.
That's fairly unfortunate. You know, I'm getting the impression it might be a good idea to rouse the beast, everybody. What are your thoughts?
I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Well, I mean, have most you friendly again and they backhand you, but I mean, sure, why not?
I'm glad we all agree.
Take your chances.
Oh! Why do you do this? Why?
All right.
Get this one out the way really quickly.
So let's deal with the living Ryan first and foremost. At 5, if he scores a critical, he could tie, which still means that the victory, of course, of persuading him to flee would be all in Morgan's hands. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your dexterity plus athletics plus 2 to account for you and Ryan heading for the fucking hills as quickly as you possibly can? Meaning that you'll be exiting out of the... Are you going to be exiting out of the back window, or are you going to fight your way past them and just keep running? Meaning that you literally take off as they break through the door, you try to speed past them that way.
Going out the back window, of course. You said Dex Athletics.
Yes, plus 2. And
right.
You
are we technically in combat? Because I have Cat's Grace.
Technically, you're in combat, but yeah, that's fine. That's a good use. Not losing your footing, not tripping over an invisible crack in the sidewalk and going down, looking back as the Nosferatu close on you. That's a very good idea to do. As you all are taking off, you
that only counts if she's blonde.
Well, her hair has been a lot of colors. So as you all take off out the back door, out the back window, you will in fact come across Ryan, who is being beset. So what you decide to do, if anything, is entirely your call, because you effectively would have a backstab available to you as you all break out of the back window and take off, or you can leave him fending for himself. And while that is in the consideration in the offing, in regards to Fancy's 2 successes of stopping and flinging the Nosferatu free, let's give that a roll and see what fate has decided for you in regards to him holding on for dear fucking life as he claws and crawls his way towards divesting you of existence.
Look, okay, we've all established that Dice Jesus hates me tonight.
Just a little bit.
What? There it is. Okay, never mind.
Slamming on the brakes, the Nosferatu does the most ridiculous thing that one should ever do. Instead of being flung free by inertial forces, he punches through the fabricated sheet metal of the hood, and there's a strip of it torn free like a scab being pulled away from skin. As he hangs on to that thin sheet of fabricated steel, his crab-like claw of a hand dug in, there is a "this shouldn't be happening" and a "no fucking way." He's well past the incredulous impossibility of that as you look into his absolutely blood-soaked facsimile of a human eye. It's not just an eye. It's not just a pair of eyes staring at you. Imagine, if you will, each small pupil and iris on a fly's head magnified to the size of a golf ball, and each of those small little visual sensors being the full lovely caramel brown of a human's iris staring at you, the redness of the veins still running through there, the face looking as if it had already been run over by an angry elephant, scabrous and dry, looking relatively smushed, the nose sitting higher than it should, the brow meeting with the top of the nostrils, the ears misshapen, one higher on the head than the other, and then those crab-like appendages, that bright red, glossy shellac of a skin, as he claws and crawls his way through the inertial forces of the vehicle, coming to a near dead stop as it slides along the sand. And as Fancy deals with that, the shot fired by Eugene connects with all of that upper torso, and instead of a gout of blood or fabric being blown free, there's the cracking of what looks like a lobster shell beneath all of that ragged waste that is this particular Nosferatu. It does not in fact fall free, but it is angered by it. It's almost as if he's being whipped and lashed, and instead of yielding to the pain, he snarls in his angry maw of a mouth, he yells, and he begins crawling and clawing himself closer and closer. Even in a place that is controlled by the kindred, there's only so long they can do without other witnesses, increasing the investment of time, effort, and energies to make sure it disappears. And while they had already planned on wiping this place from the fabric of reality in every provable means, this is absolutely ridiculous. This is a flouting of every sense of logic and thought, and the real value of what the immortal absconded with comes barreling down on everyone's shoulder. To spend this much money and effort and time to account for those materials, it is clearly a game changer. It is clearly more involved in that information than what has previously been understood. because there's no way to look at it without realizing that the Prince of Prim, your sire Fancy, is betting not only the farm, but the entirety of the county on this scheme, whatever it is. And as those thoughts circulate and percolate,
Oh,
it shouldn't be possible. There's impossible and there's unbelievable. This is somewhere firmly in the middle between the two. As the Nosferatu crashes into you, attempting to drive you further into all of that hard-packed desert sand. Because of the lightness of your being, the effort and energy expended and expelled to drive you into the ground drives you from his grip as you manage to redirect him in the exact same amount of force without the mass behind it as he is attacking you, sending him into the as close to hell as any kindred will ever become. Gouts of sand fly up as he hits this hard-packed, near concrete-like sand path, and living Ryan and Morgan come barreling out of the inside of Anastasia's abode. Eugene watches as the Nosferatu continues closing on Fancy. Martha watches as the chaos of this moment echoes into immortality. What is it that you all are doing?
I cast Extinguish Vitae at somebody. In line of sight.
giving up on saving the girl, are we?
Well, that's true. I could try to do some first aid on her.
You could.
That probably might be helpful because if she dies as well, we're pretty much this whole thing would be worth buckets.
Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, I'll take a crack at healing the girl.
Triage. It can be simplified with keep everything inside, and keep everything that was outside from getting inside. In this particular very traumatic moment for the body of Anastasia, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your wits plus medicine as highly as you can. Now, it will require several heart-pounding, pulse-racing moments if you are in fact successful. Far less if you are unsuccessful. Fancy, Morgan, Eugene, and Ryan, in the fracas of all of this happening, knowing that several moments are passing and disappearing before your eyes, the opportunities are growing exponentially more convoluted and conflicted. There were lessons and talks and rules and lines you all were told to observe. All of that warning in advance, all of that grace, all of that heavy-handed mercy is out the window. What is it that you all are doing as Martha does their absolute best to save a source of information for you all? Scrambling over, covered in the life's blood of the immortal, scrambling over, looking very much like the image of what a wild, untamed kindred would be like if they had the best of table manners. As the world explodes in the violence of these Nosferatu exercising their full, unchecked power, what is it you all are doing?
Running towards a vehicle to get the fuck out of Dodge.
Eugene takes an aim shot at the hand, the big lobster claw-like hand of the Nosferatu that is still on Fancy's car. He's going to try to shoot the hand, hopefully weakening it so that she can throw him off.
And
actually, no. Did the car stop? Did Fancy's car stop?
Yes.
Fuck. That takes away what I was hoping. Okay. Alright. Action 1. Whirl around. Quick shoot the guy who pounded on Living Ryan.
And not so Living Ryan, not being fully aware that the immortal was gunned down and is fully dead, is just going to try and collect the quote-unquote unconscious body and make it to the getaway vehicle.
Wait, so non-living Ryan is not being beaten up by a Nosferatu?
No, he drove the Nosferatu into the ground, but doesn't mean that they're down to stay down yet. He just takes off running towards you.
Put one in put one in the guy's dome to make sure that he stays down.
And Fancy.
With this being a contractor's truck, I'm assuming there's some sort of tools in the front seats. She's looking for the biggest, heaviest thing, and she's going to try to crack the Nosferatu about the head, reaching out the window.
And Morgan, when you and Living Ryan are looking for a vehicle, are you running towards Fancy's vehicle? Or you're going to circle back around the house to attempt to hijack or go over the fence to seal an alternative vehicle?
I think we might circle around to the front of the house because I'm fairly certain the vehicle that she's got isn't going to fit all of us.
Okay. In order of operations: gunshot, smack, run, carry. Gene, go ahead and roll your... It's a call shot, so you're going to be -1. Dexterity and firearms. Fancy, go ahead and roll your strength plus melee. Morgan, go ahead and roll your dexterity and athletics plus 1, because you are actually in fact running back past the house where the other Nosferatu are breaking through. And Martha, you've already made your roll. We'll see how that happens. Ryan, you are rushing towards the immortal, escaping the Nosferatu on your heels, so go ahead and roll your dexterity and athletics plus any applicable celerity. And we will see what fate has in store for you all.
Well, see, look at this. I've been typing Hail Satan on every roll. The one time I put down Praise God. I guess this is a proper Christian episode here. Yeah. Willpower just hasn't been treating us right. I'm sorry, Fancy. That's evil.
It is. Fate has conspired to stymie and stagnate. Oh. Morgan, that's only one die. Was that your rouse? It was the rouse. All right. Team Nosferatu, what do you have at play? 7 or 0. Difficulty max 5. Firing a firearm is more about staying composed, staying dedicated and focused on the idea of what the tool was created for, and that was the extinguishing of the enemy's existence. Whether the enemy is the beast of burden that will provide food for the winter, or an enemy combatant. The tool itself is designed to extinguish and end that enemy's being. In this particular moment, as the shot misses, not by a country mile, but as far as Eugene is concerned, fairly close, because the damn fool Nosferatu crawling across the hood of Fancy's vehicle is determined to satiate her of her existence, and the horribly determined Nosferatu, pulling himself from the dirt, does the unthinkable, the unbelievable, leaping skyward, driving itself up into the near stratosphere, equal to the top of the trailer that you've all just escaped, and driving itself down into Ryan with all due haste. That 8 becomes a 7 as he rides Ryan into the ground. It very much looks as if it's something directed by Tim Burton. The angry ape pounce and beating and clawing and yelling and screaming and making a mockery of its bipedal nature, using the entirety of its being as a weapon. Having fought kindred, having fought humans, the animalistic visage of this Nosferatu dredges up horrific nightmares had when watching King Kong for the first time. Those large incisors, that chest that is massive enough to hold skyscrapers, that lack of gentleness. Fancy would like to believe that there is a commonality of a willingness to survive, of not putting oneself at harm just because one can. The Nosferatu don't hold such illusions and are willing and able to accept the pain of existence and visited upon all of their targets. Again, unchecked power leading to a certain level of madness. As the wrench in her hand rearranges its lower jaw, it clamps that horrid, ridiculous appendage into that self-same forearm, clamping down with enough force that she can feel the bones realigning themselves at various points along their length. Breaking around the house, it makes sense in theory. Who would go back to the scene of the crime? Who would run past danger to get free? It's one of those moments of so crazy it just might work, until Ryan, its football kicked nearly through you, sending you both back several feet from your near escape around the side of the house. While the two were breaking through, the other decided to go around, and you all ran smack dab into that unchecked violent potential. You like to think that Ryan will be okay. He's a tough, strong, very trained individual. But the surprise of the kick causes all sorts of unfun sounds, cracking, squeaking, and a small gobbet of blood to escape unplanned from his mouth. Tumbling backwards onto this hard-packed sand, it is very hard to see tomorrow as a viable option. You've all each been at lower points over the course of your unlife. This moment is competing with that. Violence for violence sake, just the madness of power, the inhumanity of these beings is enough to have one truly believe all of those conspiracy theories as to whom is actually the master of this planet, whom is the ruler of this earth. It'd be easy to give up all faith and all hope. But the easy thing has never been what the loss were about. It's always the most difficult of moments where the measure of the character comes to the fore. As Martha manages to triage Anastasia, as Fancy realizes that she'll have to learn how to write with her right arm, at least for a night or two, as Eugene empties his spent cartridges and reloads, as Ryan realizes that maybe it would be a good idea to hire a body man to stick with him and stick on his shoulder during situations such as this, as rare as they are. A gift from just stage left arrives. A wealth of activity, an unknowing as to the nature of the world. The police who are in the pocket of the Prince of Prim, those who know that they're not to arrive at certain situations because they've all been given notice, in their mad dash, in the fullness of the vanity behind their actions, having initially gone to Anastasia's actual address across the street, they only cleared what was to happen across the street. Anastasia, being the property manager, had been operating out of a leasing unit, as she put it back to rights. Her mother, the woman you all watch be divested of existence, mother-in-law to be exact, in her home is this coterie saving grace. Having cleared for protective actions on the target's location, which was across the street, the calls actually reached the police for this location. As all hope seems very much fleeting at best, you hear the sirens. You feel the presence of the night cracking open with all of that violent klaxon of police cars swarming an area. The police who believe they are in fact protecting the status quo by making sure whatever's happening over here does not affect over there. One rough final action is available for you all as the night closes in on you. What will that be?
Oof.
Well, we are going to continue to attempt to get to that car.
Yeah. Collecting the body is kind of off the tables for me, given that I've got an apparently exceptionally skilled Nosferatu beating my ass. But with the kind of shock of the sirens approaching, hopefully that'll get me enough of a gateway to actually escape from this fucker and make the way to the vehicle itself. And trust in Martha to at least collect the one that she's on top of.
Eugene, fancy.
Eugene starts moving towards Anastasia to actually grab her. They can triage her in the flatbed. We gotta get out of here.
Fancy.
I mean, she's not much she can do. She's like grabbed, and I guess the best she can do is try to pull her arm back into the van. Into the truck. If he comes along with it, she'll handle it then. But she's trying to yank her hand back inside.
The night has been a roller coaster ride of moments. From the road pirates and the victory over them, from the escape from Vegas and finding the hidden clue in the path where the immortal was laying low, to understanding the conspiracy at play. The coterie has been through a lot. The coterie has experienced the hoary edge of what could and does go wrong when power is allowed to exist without balance and checks, when old feelings are allowed to fester, when old injuries are allowed to heal wrong. As Morgan and Ryan are chased into the night by the fleeing Nosferatu as they go towards the police arriving through the front of the property. And Fancy fighting off the Nosferatu who is attempting to divest them of existence.
She would, while fighting with him, try to get the vehicle closer to Eugene and Martha just to make it easier for them to get in. And then hopefully once they're in, get away.
Driving across the small bit of distance, heading towards Eugene and Martha, and Ryan escaping the direct onslaught of the Nosferatu, riding him like the angry ape of addiction. There's a measure of things, an innumerable number of impossibilities. One of them being the very thready and almost non-existent pulse of Anastasia as Eugene and Martha get her into the flatbed of the truck, as Ryan grabs on and begins climbing through. And the Nosferatu, seeing all of that lovely, delicious last few dregs, attempts to clump and glom onto Anastasia. I'd like to thank you all for a lovely bit of play. I'll look forward to seeing what the lost might come to next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
All we managed to do was burn the fucking building down. We're back on square zero.